Hi, welcome to Real Gold, where we discuss classic films, their relevance and importance, and whether they deserve the awards that they received. I'm your host, Matt Duffy. Today, I want to talk about two films from 1954. Warner Brothers' A Star is Born, starring Judy Garland and James Mason, and Paramount Pictures' The Country Girl, starring Grace Kelly, Bing Crosby, and William Holden. These two films have made their mark in film history not only thanks to the actors in it, but due to the heavily touted Best Actress race between its leading ladies. Today, I want to talk about these two films and then the Best Actress race between Grace Kelly and Judy Garland. Did Hollywood make the right choice? Did Grace Kelly deserve to win over Judy, or should Judy have prevailed? Let's talk about it. So the first film that I want to talk about is A Star is Born, which was directed by George Cukor. And the plot is about a movie star who meets a showgirl. They form a romance, and as her career begins to rise, his begins to tragically wane. Now, the film is a remake of a 1937 drama starring Janet Gaynor and Friedrich March. Fun fact, they were both nominated for their performances. And one of the great things about this film that I enjoy is the storyline. It is timeless. I mean, there's a reason why it was remade two more times after this. Once in 1976 with Barbra Streisand and Kris Kristofferson, and last year in 2018 with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. So the story's there, and it's a great story. It's a true, dramatic, romantic kind of melodrama, and I'm a bit of a sap for that. So, that aside, the other reason to watch this film are the performances. James Mason does a great job as Norman Maine, but this film belongs to the one and only Judy Garland. It is an apex of a performance. Just watching her, it's like, wow. She has these dramatic monologues, these big musical numbers, these choreography going up and down here and there. It's just fascinating to watch her. This is the reason why people become actors and actresses, watching her. She really is such a versatile performer that you are in awe of it. And if there's one reason why you should watch this film, it is to watch Judy Garland kill it. So the production of it starts when Judy and her husband at the time, Sid Luft, formed a production company and shopped around the idea of remaking A Star is Born as a musical vehicle and comeback for Judy in Hollywood. Warner Brothers decided to work with them and produce it, and they started to film it. This is where the problems start to arise. Sid Luft was not a producer before this, so he had a lot of inexperience. They wanted to film it in Warner Scope, which was the rival to CinemaScope, but then they scrapped that. Then they decided to film it in CinemaScope, which requires a lot of more money, a lot of more detail, and George Cukor wasn't a fan of it, yada yada. Then you had Judy's reputation on set. She was late. Sometimes she didn't come, took a lot of days off, and the pills and the drugs. It was just a really bad combination of things. However, I will say this about Judy. They always say that, she may have, shown up late. She didn't show up at all. But when she did come, she gave 100% and gave you the less amount of takes. And that's when you were like, God damn it, that's why I'm here. That's why I am in this field. So I'll give her that. So fun fact, they already had Judy Garland, and they were looking for their Norman Maine. It was like a who's who of who's going to be Norman. You had people like Monty Clift, who turned it down. Marlon Brando turned it down. Cary Grant. George Cukor really wanted Cary Grant to play the Norman Maine part. At first he rejected it, then George Cukor begged him, and he was reconsidering, but ultimately he turned it down. Rumor has it it's because of Judy's reputation, but we'll never know. So ultimately they went with James Mason, who does a great job in the film, so we're not going to begrudge him for that. Now, arguably the most iconic moment in the film is when Judy sings The Man That Got Away. James Mason's character Norman goes to this nightclub and he sees Esther, that's Judy's character's name in the beginning, as she's singing it. And he lays eyes on her, and just the setting of it, the shadows in the background, and what Judy's singing and the lyrics, the night is bitter, the stars have lost their glitter. So definitely look out for that. But if I had to pick my one scene or my one shot, it would have to be the Born in the Trunk sequence. It's fascinating. How she lost the Oscar for it, we'll go into it. But I felt like I was watching Judy's life before my eyes. Basically, the Born in the Trunk sequence comes at the end of Act 1. And this is her big payoff scene. This is like The Shallow from the new version of A Star is Born. This is the moment where Norman and, now her name is Vicky, go to the theater and they see the film that she's been working on. And it is just a masterpiece. Fun fact, the Born in the Trunk sequence was not originally in the film. Roger Edens, who is Judy's longtime friend and a great composer at MGM, came over and he helped develop this moment in the film for Judy. And, Warner Brothers accommodated her with night shoots so they could get it right. And it was one of the last things done on filming. It's 15 minutes. It's almost like the rival version to those MGM ballads in these 50s musicals. But it's really worth it to get that last shot of Judy's character bowing as the audience goes wild. Is just astounding. Like, that is the moment when you know a star is born. It's great. Definitely check it out. Don't forget that moment. So now when the film first came out and it premiered in New York, it was at 181 minutes. Audiences loved it. They were screaming. A rumor is they were saying, "Don't cut any of it." Judy had these glowing reviews. They were fascinating. Warner Brothers heard from their base in New York that the theaters were complaining that it was too long. They weren't getting enough showings of it, so they weren't making any money. So what Warner Brothers did to combat that was they took the footage and just chopped it up. They just picked stuff, threw it out. So you're left with this choppy film at 154 minutes. So, I'm not good at math. So what is that? 27 minutes? They cut out 27 minutes of the film. And they didn't care. They were chopping out, musical numbers, some of the meet-cute scenes in the beginning, some of the dramatic parts. So you were left with this kind of, I don't know how to say it, choppy film. There were scenes that were vital to the film that were missing. They did this behind George Cukor's back, behind Sid and Judy's back. So they were devastated when this happened. And because of that, word of mouth spread. The film got mixed reviews from audiences. Less people saw it. The film was technically a failure. For the amount of money spent on it, and then to just do that, it's devastating. The real loser in it is Judy. So when it came time for award season, Judy had racked up a couple of nominations. Actually, James Mason and Judy Garland won the Golden Globes for Best Actor and Actress in a Musical or Comedy. So they had that, but Warner Brothers really didn't campaign for her either. I don't know if it was Jack Warner's dislike for Judy or Sid Luft. It could be a bunch of things. Judy's reputation, but it just sucks because it is a really good performance, and Warner Brothers did Judy and George Cukor dirty. In 1981, Ron Haver, a film historian, collaborated with the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences to find this lost footage. And he went to private vaults. They went to the Warner Brothers, vaults. They went to the sound facilities there. At the sound facilities, they found the full soundtrack for the film. So using that and what he had obtained, he was able to get this restoration up to 176 minutes. And in 1983, they had a screening at Radio City Music Hall, which was held to high acclaim. The story is Liza Minnelli and Lorna Luft, Judy's daughters, were there, and after the film, they had to be put into a room because they couldn't stop crying, overjoyed and happy that people were able to witness their mother's performance at her finest and at its fullest. So going into Oscar season, the film was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Lead Actor for James Mason, Best Lead Actress for Judy Garland, Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, Best Original Score, and Best Original Song for The Man That Got Away. And unfortunately, it came out with nothing. Although I would argue its best two shots were Best Original Song. How it lost to 3 coins in the fountain, I don't know. But Best Original Song is a completely different ballgame. So you can't even go into that. I think White Christmas was nominated too. And so it's just anyway. Best Actress was where the real race was, and we're gonna get into that. But first, let's talk about The Country Girl. Now, The Country Girl is directed by George Seaton, and it is about a director who hires a once famous Broadway star and how he must deal with the star's ever-present wife during the rehearsal period. William Holden plays Bernie, the director. Bing Crosby plays Frank, the star. And Grace Kelly plays Georgie, Frank's wife. Now, the film is adapted from the 1950 play of the same name by Clifford Odets. And fun fact, Uta Hagen played the role of Georgie on Broadway and won the Tony. So it's a meaty role going in. And George Seaton always wanted Bing Crosby to play Frank. He rejected it at first, but George Seaton begged him, and finally he relented. And I'm glad he did, because Bing Crosby was out of this world. This is not your going my way White Christmas Bing Crosby. This is someone completely different. And just the way he plays Frank is such a has-been and a loser, just reeking of desperation. It's sadness. The sadness that he plays is just definitely a standout for me. William Holden was good. Grace Kelly, though, she was great too. I mean, she lobbied hard for this role. Originally Jennifer Jones was considered for the part, but then she got pregnant. And Grace Kelly, rumor has it, fought tooth and nail to play Georgie. She wanted to prove that she wasn't just a face. She was an actress. She threatened to quit Hollywood. That was the story. But I'm glad she did too, because this is something totally out of her wheelhouse. And just the way she plays Georgie is just this fatigue. She is the long-suffering wife. We see it in, Marcia Gay Harden and Pollock. We see it in Jennifer Connelly in A Beautiful Mind. But this is someone different, because the way she plays Georgie is just with a fatigue. I'm done. I'm sick of it. And this conviction that she has about her husband and the dependency that they both have with each other it's so great. The three of them are the co-leads, and they are just great bouncing off of each other. Now, if I had to pick my one scene or one shot for this film, it would definitely be the confrontation scene between Bernie and Georgie towards the end of the film. Basically, Bernie finds out Frank's secret, and he goes to talk to Georgie about it. And the plot thickens with this great twist that I didn't even see coming. So you guys definitely check out for that scene. It's a really good scene.
All I want is my own name and a modest job to buy sugar for my coffee.
Another great thing about this film is that it is your classic backstage drama. It's about the theater and the actors and the directors and the production going into the production. So, and we don't get these kind of films anymore. I mean, we got Birdman, but that's another story. Now, the reviews for the film were great. Variety says, Crosby pulls a masterly switch, immersing himself into the part with full effect. Grace Kelly is resolute to the hilt. It's obvious people love the film. The box office was great, the reviews were good, and the Academy liked it as well. It was nominated for 7 awards, including the Big Five. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Lead Actor for Bing Crosby, Best Lead Actress Grace Kelly, Best Screenplay, Best Cinematography, and Best Art Direction. So, going in, you knew it was going to be a good night for The Country Girl. It ended up winning 2 awards. It won Best Screenplay for George Seaton, and it won Best Lead Actress for Grace Kelly. Now, here's a little tidbit of information. Here's how you know that the Academy liked The Country Girl. The Country Girl and On the Waterfront that year are the only 2 films that were nominated for Best Picture and Best Director. So it had that going for it. It had the support. So come Oscar night, you knew it was going to win something. And now let's go to the Oscars. Best Actress, 1954.
So the award for the best performance by an actress. Grace Kelly for the country girl.
Okay, Best Actress. Here we go. This is like the meat and the potatoes section. On one hand, you have Judy Garland, Hollywood veteran with a comeback performance. On the other hand, you have Grace Kelly, a newcomer in 4 films that year. Who are you going to pick? Alright, let's talk about the other nominees. You had Dorothy Dandridge in Carmen Jones, Audrey Hepburn in Sabrina, and Jane Wyman in Magnificent Obsession. Now, Dorothy Dandridge, although she is, with this nomination, the first African-American actress to be nominated for the Best Actress Oscar, this is 1955. She doesn't have a shot in hell. It is a good performance, though, so definitely check it out if you see it. 2. Audrey Hepburn and Jane Wyman are both former Best Actress Oscar winners. Audrey Hepburn won her Oscar the year before for Roman Holiday. She was the it girl that year. And Jane Wyman won hers in 1948 for Johnny Belinda. So you had Dorothy Dandridge and these 2 winners. So the 2 winners cancel them out. Dorothy Dandridge out. So you're left with Grace Kelly and Judy Garland. Who do you pick? The story is Judy wasn't there at the ceremony because she had just given birth to her son. So the Academy knew she was favored. They brought a cameraman to her room so that when her name was called, they would put it up and she'd be just like, I'd like to thank the Academy. However, the story goes that when they called Grace Kelly's name, the camera people were out as soon as her name was called, and Judy was left alone. And Groucho Marx telegrammed Judy and told her it was the biggest robbery since Brinks. So I think the race is a little more competitive than we thought it was. They both won the Golden Globe for Best Actress. Grace Kelly won hers in the drama category. Judy Garland won hers in the musical or comedy section. However, Grace also won the New York Film Critics Circle Award for Best Actress. She won not only for her performance in The Country Girl, she won for Rear Window, Dial M for Murder. So she had kind of had that momentum going on. She already had a previous nomination with the Academy too. She was in Mogambo in 1953 with Clark Gable and Ava Gardner and won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress. But she lost in 1953 to Donna Reed. So she had the 1 nomination under her belt. Whereas Judy, this was her first nomination besides the Juvenile Award she got for The Wizard of Oz. It almost kind of reminds me of when Jennifer Lawrence won her Oscar a couple of years ago. She had the 1 nomination under her belt, she had The Hunger Games, and then she did Silver Linings Playbook and was the it girl. Grace Kelly's the same story. She has the 1 nomination, she's in a very popular film, she's in a bunch of films that year, so her ascendance is rising. So now it just comes to the fact that did the Academy want to honor a newcomer with a boatload of talent, or do they want to award a veteran with a whole lot of talent that they've seen? It's like a head and the heart kind of thing. Grace is your head, Judy's your heart. Which one do you go with? And ultimately, they decided to go with the person that they thought had more promise, Grace Kelly. And, there are all these rumors that, all the MGM people voted against Judy because they were mad she didn't make A Star is Born at MGM. Then you have the other stuff about, how people didn't like working with Judy, so they didn't want to vote for her. And then Grace heavily campaigned for the Oscars. She worked with everyone. She met every person. So you have all these kind of factors. But we'll never know the final outcome. There's an urban myth that Hedda Hopper said that the race was between Grace and Judy, and it was between 6 votes. We'll never know, though. Jane Wyman could have been in second place for all we know. Do I agree with this outcome? On one hand, I do. Grace gives a good performance. She deglams for the role and is a total 180 of what she usually does. And she is a newcomer. She was the it girl, so I understand that her popularity was at its all-time high. On the other hand, Judy just knocks it out of the park with A Star is Born, and it's a shame that she didn't get to win the Oscar in the end. So I see both sides of the fence, but I ultimately understand why Grace Kelly won the Academy Award for Best Actress at the 27th Academy Awards. And I hope you guys do too. So that's it. That's A Star is Born, The Country Girl, and the 1954 Best Actress Oscar race, all in a nutshell. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to hit like, click subscribe, write a comment. If you have a suggestion, write it down. Don't forget to follow me at MattDuffy33 on social media, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon with a new video. Catch you later.